lies, falsehoods, propaganda, and another day of pain, essentially, as a Man United fan. The Financial Times and Times Sport have revealed that Joel Glazer is expected to remain involved at a sporting level once the Jim Ratcliffe stake has been ratified. He will be part of a football committee comprising of Ratcliffe and Sir David Brailsford. Sources said it was ridiculous to think the Glazers would relinquish all control when they remain a majority share in the club, and Joel currently operates alongside his brother Avram as co-chairman. Hit the like button first of all. Please remember to do that. Subscribe, turn on bell notifications. But this here is essentially my biggest fear realized. There was hope the other day, and I spoke about it as this is what's being said. Let's hold them to account. The reports were that Sir Jim Ratcliffe was taking full control of the sporting or footballing operation. And there is hope within that if he brings in the right footballing and technical directors, the correct recruitment team, United could become somewhat successful again. How do we know this? Man United have been successful under the Glazers with Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill running the football club. So it isn't impossible. But as I stated on Sunday, if the Glazers are remaining in control of the football element, commercially, they do a great job with the football club. But when you merge the two, when you muddy that water and you allow Glazonomics to have a say in the football matters, they are always going to hurt you. They are always going to make, because they have done for 17 years, put commercial decisions above footballing decisions. Now, that doesn't mean for anyone in the back being stupid, you want them to complete footballing decisions that would bankrupt the football club and therefore put you out of business. But they would sign a player that a manager doesn't want or need or doesn't fit the style of football to sell shirts. They will renew the contract of an average player as opposed to selling at a loss and investing additional money in a better individual. With multiple managers, they very rarely let a manager replace a player that's been purchased who's flopped. They very rarely let a manager rectify a mistake. Well, you've had two centre-backs now, you've got to stick with them. You've had a full-back now, you've got to stick with him. You bought a bad goalie, we don't care. You've got to stick with him. To read this news this morning pains me to my core. And let us not forget what the headline said just 6 days ago, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe will immediately take control of the club's sporting operations if his offer is ratified by the club's board, possibly as early as this week. Now, I don't necessarily believe that was untrue. There's been a delay, hasn't there, this week? And in my personal opinion, that delay is where the Glazers have gone, actually, no. We're not going to do that. And this is why people like me do not want. Now, I'm open-minded. I'm not a polarized person. So I'm open-minded and I'm hopeful that if this 25% takeover goes through, that it's successful. But I don't want it because I don't believe it can be whilst the Glazers are still here. And what's crazy when it comes to these lies as well is these further stories that come out. This is from Michael Keenan today. Well, not lies, problems, I should say, where he says that Man United are not planning major moves in January. Given compliance with financial fair play rules, the view within the club is that players would need to be sold or depart on loan to free up space to bring in new faces. And again, this strikes me as odd considering the club is about to get £1.3 billion cash injection. Because FFP isn't about net spend. Net spend is a basic formula created by newspapers, and it doesn't exist in the reality of a football club. Football clubs' FFP is based on their trading accounts, their profit and loss as a business. If you suddenly take in 1.2 billion in investment and you clear up debt, which is what we should be using it for, even if it's just half the debt, let's go and pay off 50, 60, 70% of the money owed to other football clubs. Just doing those two things. And by the way, the club is allowed to invest. We've never invested a penny, so this is free for us, up to £100 million every 3 years. So we'd be able to do that today because we've never invested anything. We're definitely not up to our limit. £100 million of the club, of the owner's money. So if Sir Jim is a 25% owner, 100 million of the 1.3 billion could be injected into buying players. So the fact that Man United are getting, or the Glazers are getting 1.3 billion, we have seen no word all week that debt's going to be paid off, that clubs that are owed money will be paid. We're being told there's no significant targets for the January transfer window. And now we're also being told that one of the Glazers will still be part, and I guarantee you they'll have vetoes. I guarantee you there'll be a veto within the agreement, will sit on a 3-man committee that will control the footballing element at the club. So what's going to change? Still debt. And we've been waiting for answers. And I always prefer to wait for answers before I express my true opinion. But reading this today, it reads terribly. Unless I'm mistaken. And if you guys can educate me in the comment sections, I'm always open to it. Because again, this isn't about me thinking I know more than anybody else. But what I am reading is no new transfers, debt staying the same. Ratcliffe doesn't have full control of the footballing operation. And by the way, you can do a deal where you're a minority shareholder in a business, but you control certain aspects. How do I know this? My own businesses. Some of the businesses I've invested in, I have a majority share, but part of my investment into that said company gives me control over certain areas. One of them being my people do the books. So my accountant does the books. I get that I have control over all of that. So it's a nonsense that it can't be agreed. This idea, why would that happen if they're only 25% ownership? Well, because you're given 1.3 billion, which is, by the way, 50% of the value of the club. And I say this before and I'll say it again. I do not believe we're going to get systemic, long-term change until Manchester United fans boycott this football club. I keep hearing the Sir Jim Ratcliffe out and we don't want you here. But you're still going to go to the games. You're still going to buy the food. You're still going to buy the programs and buy the kits and go on the website. Follow the Twitter account. You're going to do all these things that generate the, and by the way, going on the website, going on the Twitter account, going to the stadium, all these things are why the sponsors are there. The website especially, which I shudder to think the amount of traffic it gets. They do it because the millions of people a day that go to it, the sponsors' logos are rammed in your face. That's why they're there. That's why they sponsor Man United. And they would all be not pulling their sponsorship straight away, but they would all be knocking on the door of the Glazer saying, hang on a minute, we've got no traffic coming through. No one's seeing our products. No one's buying anything. We're getting bad reviews online. It's the way of doing this, people. But listen, it's up to you guys. And do you want to know another reason why I think the Glazers decided not to sell? I saw this report today that came out. The Crystal Palace chairman, Steve Parish, has said the Premier League are discussing bringing in a hard wage cap for clubs. Now, something like this, in my personal opinion, would suit the Glazers because they would be able to lower the wage bill at the club. Now, for other teams, a wage cap is great. So for Man City, a wage cap would be great because it would free up more. The wage expenditure is often a much bigger focus at a football club than transfer expenditure. It all comes out of the same pot, the player expenditure pot, which is why net spend isn't real. Because if you increase your wage bill by 50, 60 million pounds over a season, net spend may look good in the newspapers, but if your salary bill is increased, plus there's bonuses attached to it, you have to factor this in because clubs do. So why would we not? Anyway, for Man City, this would be a good thing because let's just say the cap comes in, you have to maybe within 5 years you've got to comply with that. It means wages for footballers essentially are going to become less. And if the Premier League does a wage cap, other places will do a wage cap as well. They'll all follow suit. What that will mean for clubs is you have the same income being generated, but now maybe there's a 200 million pound cap on what you can pay in salary. That might free up 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 million pounds a year more for transfers. So clubs like City, ambitious clubs, will use those additional funds now to improve their squad further. The Glazers will just take more dividends. The Glazers will just suck more out of this football club. And I've said it before. And by the way, if they're able to make more money, if they're able to make more profit as a going concern and as a business, it makes the club more valuable in reality. So this is what I've said to people before. Money is their sole motivator. Making money out of Man United. Thus, they are easy to control. And if Man United fans, in my personal opinion, would have the stomach and the heart to boycott the football club financially, I believe within a 3-month period, this club would be up for sale and the Glazers would be ready to walk away because we could just damage it for them exponentially, permanently. It's the only thing we haven't tried. And I know that for a lot of Man United fans, they worry about what if I don't get my ticket back and I want to look like a fan, I want to support the boys. What if in the short term we start losing? Listen, I want to be successful this season. If somebody said to me that boycotting the club would mean we finish 12th a couple of seasons on the bounce, but the Glazers would then be gone, but we could get new good quality owners in, I think in the longer term we would be more successful than carrying on as we are now. That's my personal belief, but I'd love to hear from you below. I'm ashamed to read this news today. More nonsense, more lies, more falsehoods. The Glazers remaining in control. It's another terrible day for Man United. It really, really is.